All right, hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Happy Cells and Souls. I'm Julie Powers, and as a licensed Zumba instructor and as a business partner with the Juice Plus company, my mission is basically to help people know that life is better when they're dancing through it and that they can live a healthier life. And my expanded mission is to create better health at the cellular level and more joy at the cellular level. And I believe our time here on earth is meant to be happy and joyful, and that's what I want people to walk into. Having a healthier, happier body, it's all we've got. We've got one body to live in, so I want to help people take care of it. But also, I want to help people understand that there's an inner being that we're supposed to be embracing, and it's supposed to be filled with light and joy so that we can spread that throughout the world. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to do with this YouTube channel, is to bring a little more light into the world by having some conversations with some really cool people. And I've had the honor and privilege of getting to know some very remarkable people throughout my life. And I believe that every one of those people has something to share and something we can learn from. And it doesn't matter if we have different opinions, different political beliefs, different upbringings and experiences. Every single person can learn from every other person. And so that's what we're doing today, is we are going to learn something from my friend Jenny Tosner. And Jenny is a life coach, a public speaker. She's a best-selling author, and she's the founder of Warrior Storytellers Publishing. And she's just a really cool person that I've gotten to get to know over the last few months. And one of the things that she has been able to help me with is learning more about how to meditate. And so a lot of my friends and family members and acquaintances, meditation is something very new. It's not a regular practice as part of our lives, but I started meditating in August and it's now January. So I've had a few months of dipping my toe in that water and I'm getting better at it. But I think that it's always good to get some different perspectives. And why should anybody even meditate? Can you tell us a little bit about your experience? And you've had a lot of experience with this.
Thank you so much, Julie. What a beautiful introduction. And I so love that we're talking about this today because we're starting off 2020 and a lot of people have intentions of having a more mindful life. And I can't imagine a better way to get to know yourself than to have a regular time for meditation. I feel like one of the reasons that I started about 10 years ago on my meditation journey, which is hard to believe that it's that long. But I know that in my journey of, I identified so much my sense of self-worth and my value as a person with how many to-do list items I could check off in a day. So I was a teacher, I was a grant writer, I was going to school, I was getting my master's, and I had all these side projects. And I had this way of filling up all the pockets and corners of my life with things to do. And I thought that I was, I felt like I was doing meaningful work and it was leading towards a life of significance for me. And while the work that I was doing I loved, I also found that there was like this almost bottomless pit of unfulfillment. And I was just led through a few books and resources, one of which was Oprah, another was Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle, and they're definitely heavy hitters in the like personal development world, as we know. But I was just guided, I don't know, by some unseen force to check out their books, their podcasts, their meditation series. And it was really hard for me in the beginning because I was in such a practice of not sitting with myself. And as I was just going through my day, I found that I was a little bit of an automaton and I was run by my subconscious programming and I was living for other people, ultimately is what I found. And when I carved out time for meditation, I got to know who I was and what I really wanted outside of what I thought the world wanted of me.
Right. Well, I'm totally guilty of filling up every little corner and pocket of life. And it seems that most of my life I have lived with a to-do list and then a to-do list of another to-do list of another to-do list.
Totally.
And so I get it. And, I think that a lot of people, they don't ever take that time to stop.
Yeah.
And one of the things that made me kind of nervous about even trying to meditate was I thought, I'm supposed to stop all thought.
Mhm.
What? How does that happen? And so, I know that that's a struggle that a lot of people have is when you're meditating. And also I thought, I don't have a meditation pillow. I'm not going to sit cross-legged on the floor and light a candle. And, that's not what I'm going to do. I kind of looked on it as, I know that it says in the Bible, even meditate on these things, whatever is good and true and everything, so it's not like meditation is this woo, scary voodoo thing. It's just stopping and getting in
Yeah.
touch with your own life and your own self and your own space. But um, yeah, it's a different process to try to stop all
Yeah.
the noise that's coming at you. So can you address that? Like, how do you remember when you started meditating?
Mhm.
How did you actually go about that? Did you have a special place that you did it? Did you sit a certain way? Do you have to sit in a special chair? Do you have to, you know, do you have to have the incense burning and the candle glowing? You know what I mean? It's not like that. So,
Well, I want to say two, kind of like I have two answers for that in my own process. So one, I think what led me to meditation in the first place is that my life felt really painful.
mm,
And we've talked briefly about just like going through a traumatic experience. For me, when I was a teacher and I was in a school shooting when I was 23 years old, and just going through the process of something so like
horrifying.
shifting and horrifying, and just like it shook me to my soul, that I was really willing to do anything to find peace. So I think that there's ways that like we get the 2x4 across the forehead when we don't always listen to what our guides might be telling us. And that was definitely my experience. So because I was in such a place of pain, I spent a lot of time praying. I was like, God, angels, universe, like, please take this from me. Like, show me the way. But I was praying and praying and praying. And even when I look back at my journals when I was in my early 20s, they were just like a whole hot mess of desperation all the way through. So I know that I was definitely baptized through fire. When I started a meditation practice, I think the biggest thing was just finding a little bit of a ritual around it, because otherwise, if I tried to make myself do it, I wouldn't. It was almost like all the New Year's resolutions I used to have around going to the gym or losing that 10 pounds. Like, it was so easy to put off on the back burner, but yet like something in my spirit kept guiding me back and guiding me back and guiding me back. And I really do think that partly my trauma was what led me to fully committing fully and completely. So when I first started, I actually had an app on, I actually had like some kind of app on my iPad that there was like a timer or there was a reminder, so that there was something to help keep me accountable. And I think that when you're starting, it's really good to make it as easy as possible for yourself. So whether that is a time in the morning, if you're a morning person, or a time before you go to bed, if you're a night owl, but just finding 5 minutes, like 3 to 5 minutes is where I always recommend to start, because you can do anything for 3 to 5 minutes. If you have time to tie your shoes, you have time to meditate. So I think
Well,
that
if it takes somebody 5 minutes to tie their shoes, that's a problem.
5-year-old, totally. But really just that practice of mindfulness, it's finding one tiny pocket. And so for me, the space that I found most beneficial was in the morning. I love slow mornings. I love like my coffee. So my coffee really became the access point for my meditation practice, because I was already doing that. I was already making coffee in the morning. I already had a little bit of time before I started work for the day. So I would take my coffee and I would sit on, at that point in time, it was on my couch.
Oh.
I had this little like nook that I made, my little nest where I had my journal, and I would put on a lamp, and sometimes I would light a candle just to make it really an inviting space. And I would bring my coffee and I would just meditate for 3 minutes. And to be honest, at that point in time, that was like all I could handle.
Yeah.
But, I think that anchoring in the practice into pleasure feels really good, because otherwise our mind is going to fight it. We don't want to let go of those thoughts. We don't want to invite space. So finding a way to kind of create a lot of like cozy, pleasurable experiences for myself was a way to help me access the present moment.
Very good. And you talked about anchoring into the practice. I started with 10 minutes. I guess I'm an overachiever, and I thought 10 minutes I could do. That was really difficult. And I found that just sitting still for 10 minutes was a struggle for me, because I'm not good at sitting still. I always have to be doing something productive in my head. And so that was a big change for me. But then just breathing in, taking those deep breaths, closing my eyes. I have a little thing called electrofan. It makes a fan noise. And so I have that turned on so that I can just block out all the other sound.
Yeah.
And that was a good way to start. I'm now up to 21 minutes, but I get up early to do this. I'm up by 5 o'clock to do this before I get started on my day. So that was a commitment to make sure, because even if I got up early before, I would just think I had more time to get things done and to work on my to-do list. And now I tell myself the first 30 minutes of my day is brush my teeth, wash my face, splash water on it, and then get my meditation practice in. And then I can go on with all the other things that I normally do. But I do have 4 questions that I ask myself when I first start. And it's, who am I? And I answer that to myself. What do I want today? How can I serve today? And what am I grateful for? And so generally the first, 5 to 10 minutes of that 21 minutes is me just answering questions that I've asked myself. And then I try to quiet my mind. So in about 6 minutes or 7 minutes, can you tell us some really good techniques for quieting the mind, and breathing techniques, and things that you have found people are able to do more easily?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I want to say, I think giving myself permission to not be perfect was the hardest for me, because I thought I would like achieve something if my mind was quiet. And I love, Deepak Chopra says that if you're meditating and you fall asleep, if you're meditating and you're running through your to-do list, knowing that the experience you have is the one that you need was like really helpful for me in those beginnings. Because there were times that I would fall asleep and then I'd beat myself up, or I'd run through my to-do list the whole time and then I'd be like, I failed. So there really is no way to get it wrong. It's just about noticing your patterns. So one of my favorite tools in the breathing spaces is, it's called like a 4-count breathing, or sometimes even people call it Foursquare breathing. And it's just really simple. It's like breathing in for 4 counts, holding at the top of your lungs for 4, exhaling for 4 counts, and then holding at the end for 4.
Ah, yes. I've heard that with different amounts, 4
Yeah.
seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds. But I think the 4-second makes more sense for a lot of people, because it can feel like, what? I gotta hold my breath, and you start kind of freaking out a little bit. But
I really enjoyed that when I first started, and I would get my fingers involved. So I would like breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. And I think that just the tactileness of my
right.
fingers. And then it would kind of like, then I would find a rhythm in it. And the rhythm is actually what helps. It kind of tapped me into my parasympathetic system, maybe even as a baby when my mom would rock me. It just kind of felt that kind of soothing, repetitive nature that really helped me relax.
Right. That makes sense. I think that too, it helps you take your mind off of the
Yeah.
other things that might be floating through.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that I was told to keep a journal nearby so that when I'm done meditating, I should write down things that I remember from what happened in case, be still and know, what should I know? Well, okay, tell me something. While I'm trying to block out thought, maybe something comes through. And I do find that I have a lot of things that are just the general, oh yeah, I got to remember to do that. I got to remember to do that. But what I'm trying to do is to stop when those thoughts come in. I'm like, I don't need to worry about that right now. I don't need to worry about that right now. I don't
Yeah.
need to worry about that right now. And so then when my timer goes off and I get my pen, I can't remember any of those things that went flying through my head. Maybe two or three of them, and of the 10,000 that seems to, fly through. Yeah.
And I think that what was so interesting when I started meditating. One, I thought I had interesting thoughts all the time. Turns out I didn't. I was so almost shocked and horrified at how much repetitive garbage was just running through my brain all the live long day that I didn't even know. And a lot of it was my to-do list. A
Right.
lot of it was. And what I also started to notice was how much like the repetitive thoughts, I mean, not only do they repeat, but they're not nice thoughts. So,
Well, yeah, that is something too that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about that a lot is, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And every day, about 95% of those thoughts are a repeat of the day before.
yeah.
So what I really like about the idea of meditating is it's supposed to stop that connection to picking up where you left off. Like he says, if you go to bed and you're sleeping, you're not thinking about it. And then you wake up and you turn your brain back on and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I was mad yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh, I was offended yesterday. Or, oh, I was, whatever. I guess I should pick up where I left off and be mad and offended. Well, why? What do you have to gain by that? And that's been a real eye-opening experience for me, is to drop stuff that just doesn't matter from the day before, and let's just move forward and stop looking back on the stuff that you messed up on yesterday.
Totally. Oh, yeah. And just living in the past. And I mean, our brains are wired in a certain way. We have all like these neural pathways in our brain. And the more we think a thought, the more that neural pathway gets like even more grooved into our brain. Like when you look at the physical surface of the brain, it's got all these little grooves in it. Well, those grooves are just neural pathways on which our neurons fire. So we're almost like the Pavlov's dog, where we hear the bell and we go to a response, and we hear this and we go to a response, and we're conditioned to do that, and our brains work that way. But the more I started interrupting the thoughts, the more my thoughts expanded. And I think
Right.
that's where we want to go, is how can we have more expanded thoughts? How can we access different places? How can we allow more of our experience to fill in?
More creativity, more everything, because that's the word that I chose for 2020 is expansion. And that's what I'm trying to do in so many pieces and parts of my life. And sometimes expansion means just shutting it down for a little bit. And I have found that there are times that I can think so much more clearly when I'm not thinking all the time about that thing.
Oh,
And so I think that the to-do list, although I still have thousands of to-do lists all over my desk right now, I have pieces of paper with to-do lists on them all over the place, but I'm not quite as trapped in them as I used to be. And I think that's a big step. And maybe that would be helpful for other people to try to do that. So we've got, about 1 minute left before we get to our 20-minute mark. And if we go over another minute or two, that's fine. So if there's anything that maybe you want to tell us or teach us about a breathing technique other than the 4-4-4, or keeping your feet on the floor, or the way you're sitting, or anything about it that might help someone. And I know you don't have to be perfect. You could do meditation standing on your head in a yoga pose if you wanted to, Not me, but whatever.
Yeah, well, what I'm really enjoying now, so I've explored a lot. I've explored like breath work, which was kind of an introduction. Kundalini is probably my favorite because it gets your body, your physical body. So there's like a mantra that you say with your mouth, a mudra that you do with your fingers and your hands, and then there's also a mantra plus a mudra plus there's your breath. And I find like the more in my body I am in my meditation, the more I can kind of lose myself in it. So I really love Kundalini. It's not exactly the easiest one to access, but at a certain point, it just opens up so much more of your brain. And recently, I found that I really have also enjoyed kind of going back and forth between a structured practice, like the 4-count breath or a Kundalini Kriya, but it's also just as nice to not have anything planned and just
Right.
let my mind go. Because the more my mind goes, the more it kind of detoxes, and then there's space at the end of the detox. Much like a cleanse would be with your physical body, we
Right.
need a cleanse for our minds to detox those repetitive thoughts too. So I like to listen to some meditation music, or binaural beats is also a really good way, where it kind of puts you almost into a trance-like state. And I find like when I enter a trance, then it's really easy to let go of the thoughts.
Right. So if someone were to want to look up Kundalini, how do you spell that? So those people watching will be able to look it up.
Yeah. Kundalini is Kund. Hold on, let me
I put you on
look
the
at
spot. I'm
it
sorry.
now. Like
So
now.
while you're looking that up, I know that there's also a lot of clinical scientific study on meditation and brain scans that have been done on people before meditation, during meditation, and after meditation. And it is really fascinating how the brain can start working more creatively, and the different areas of the brain that can fire after
Yeah.
meditation and during meditation. And that there have been some studies done on school children that do a meditation practice every day at school. And their behavior is so great. Their grades are so great. I mean, it's like really, it's a very interesting scientific field, not just quantum physics, but neuroscience. And so I think it's where they're being married together, and it's real. It's not pretend stuff. So
Yeah.
go ahead with the spelling for us.
So Kundalini is Kundalini. Kundalini yoga, there are some really sweet ways to just access your body through Kundalini. I love binaural beats, the spelling, and that you can just look at all of these. You can look up on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty accessible now. Binaural beats is Binural, and then beats Beats, and that's kind of background music. And what I
Right.
like about binaural beats is that it allows your mind to go to almost a hypnotic state. And it's also like a really high frequency. So it's a way, again, that repetitive motion, the repetitive, like almost like the beating of your mother's heart is very soothing to us at a very primal level. And when we can access that place that still is in us, it's easier to calm ourselves down and surrender to the process.
Well, I think that's really very helpful for a lot of people. And I hope that whoever's watching this conversation will take some time to try it. There are lots of, like you said, YouTube videos, but there's a lot of information out there about meditation and why it's good for you, and how to get started. And there are guided meditations that you can do, but you want to make sure that you're using one that is very comfortable for you and that it fits you, because you don't want to be caught up in a message that makes you feel uncomfortable for some reason. And so I think that you just have to feel them out. So I do appreciate you taking some time to help teach us and give us your background on it. And we'll see how far down the road I can get with this. And
Brave new world, it really is. And meditation is like exercise. There's no one right way to do it. And there are so many options, and just let yourself explore. I think that's the most important part.
That's right. And like we've said in another conversation, is that we are human beings, not human doings. So there is a time for turning off the to-do list and just being with yourself. So thank you for being with us today. I appreciate it. And I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.